So there's a couple of things that I'd say from your comments. One is that you say purchasing people are specialists.
So we're only taking them as an example, really, because the same would apply to everything else. Quality,
yeah. But
HR,
you pay the big money for big-brained purchasing people.
Yes.
And my question would be, how many jobs, how many products that they purchase require that big brain? When they buy a box of washers, do they need the big brain?
Pens.
Pens.
But just occasionally they have to buy something really difficult.
Fantastic.
And then the rest of the time they're wasted.
Fantastic.
Their skills and knowledge are wasted and they're overpaying.
Right, fantastic. And it's the same as in your life.
That's a really good point.
So most of the time you're not using the brains, are you?
No.
Just buying stationery. Anybody can do that.
And the worst thing is, as I say, the delays.
So you could give out all the ordinary purchasing to the production people, and you could have one purchasing expert who deals with, let's say, huge contracts with Nigeria or something really difficult, and they're the one who does that. So you could keep one person and spread all the rest out.
Of course,
although I suspect the factory could probably do everything, but that would be at least a step towards doing it. Mm-hmm. You can buy your own washers from now on, at least.
Yeah. So, and there's another issue here that when you give purchasing to this big brain purchasing team, you have a tendency to say, go on, get on with it and do your magic. And when you devolve it and distribute it throughout the whole of the production team, you think to yourself, actually, this is too complicated, this whole process. For a box of washers, it's got to be simpler than this, surely. And this is part of the emphasis we put on the rules of the game.
Yeah.
That when you devolve a process, you don't tend to take it as it is and throw it in. For example, you'll have approved suppliers lists. You'll have quality and contractual legal requirements. There's all sorts of things.
You'd keep both of those, though, wouldn't you?
You
when
would.
you devolve it to the factory.
But when you devolve it to the factory, you've got to say, okay, we've got this complicated thing. Now we've got to work out how this works systematically, logically, and efficiently.
Because you don't need the communication paperwork anymore, where people fill in their requisitions.
That's correct.
Right.
You can get rid of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but nevertheless, you still got the, say, an industry standard to meet in some part you're buying.
Yeah.
So you can't. It's not a free for all. But what we found is every single time we devolved a process, we spent a lot of time looking at it and saying to ourselves, well, we can clearly get rid of the interdepartmental communications, but what are the essence of these things that we have to protect?
We have to keep?
And the things we kept, we could then line them up and we can then say, okay, so how can we deal with this sensibly? And again, it forced us into this idea of getting our production people to do more and more stuff, because the Achilles heel of these processes is always when they spread out into different functions. Just like there would be the Achilles heel of training for an organisation is to have to get you to do it. There may be better training, but still they've got to line up all the people and they've got to make sure they're the right part of their career to be training and they're the right function, and they get all together and they get the sandwiches ordered. There's a lot to do just to subcontract it.
Yeah,
it has to be sort of combed through and washed through and worked out what's the efficient way.
But there's also a lot not to do. And I'll give you an example of that. When we were in the purchasing department mode, everybody's got to be some sort of approved supplier within that world. When you devolve it, you don't necessarily need to control everything. And people say, well, I'm not going to control the coffee and the toilet paper and all these things, which previously the purchasing department said you have to buy from over here because they're a controlled supplier.
Even sandwiches have to have an approved supplier in the
Fantastic.
council.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's whereas if somebody was just running a meeting and could order any old sandwiches, they would.
So there's a whole lot of
Probably
stuff.
get better ones for a cheaper price.
There's a whole lot of stuff which didn't necessarily go on the product, which impacted fit, form, and function. They could say, we'll get rid of all of that.
I suppose that's
and
partly,
just buy it on the internet.
That's partly because sometimes the purchasing department don't know the technicalities of what they're buying, so they have to have an approved supplier. Whereas if the production person's buying it, they know what they're looking for. They know whether that supplier's any good, because in a
but also they allocate it wisely to, well, that has to be a controlled product, because I know if I don't get that right, it's going to impact my ability to invoice the ultimate customer. So I know that, and I know these things are uncontrolled, so I don't have to worry about them. I just buy them anywhere. and from anybody.
And
But
also
these
that-
ones, I'm going to really focus my time on getting right.
Yes.